Hello, and welcome to the virtual tour of an exhibition Beyond Boundaries, Buddhist Art of Gandhara at the UC Berkeley Art Museum and Pacific Film Archive. My name is Julia White. I'm Senior Curator for Asian Art at the Berkeley Art Museum. And we are joined today from Paris, France, by my co-curator and distinguished scholar, Dr. Osmund Bopearachchi. He is formerly adjunct faculty in the Department of South and Southeast Asian Studies at Berkeley. Welcome, Osmund, and thank you for taking the time to do this virtual tour today. I should say that this exhibition was Osmund's idea and inspiration, and it is because of his knowledge and long research into the field that we were able to present this exhibition in our galleries. It was originally intended to be held last year in tandem with an advanced graduate seminar, but due to COVID, the seminar was held remotely last fall, and the exhibition was delayed. However, we are very pleased to be able to share this beautiful art with the Berkeley campus and community this coming spring. I'll now share my screen and we can begin with the first slide. This is really a landmark exhibition for us, and it will be the first time we've had the opportunity to focus exclusively on Buddhist art of this region. We're so grateful to the private and public lenders to the exhibition, including the Asian Art Museum of San Francisco. These maps will give us a chance to look at the important role that the region of Gandhara played in the cross-fertilization of cultures between ancient Greece and the Indian subcontinent. Perhaps we could begin here, Osmund, with a short description of the opening of trade routes, first by land and then by sea between these cultures, and what this meant to the development of Gandharan art.
Yes, the first map shows, in a way, the conquest of Alexander the Great. You know, he came to what we call today's Pakistan, those days a region of Gandhara, around 327 BCE. And then also by this time, the maritime roads were also active, especially from Alexandria, using the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea, and meaning the Indian Ocean. And then through the Indus River, they could reach the Gandhara. Important thing here is that I should stress is it's a land of cross-fertilization, because many civilizations came into being, not only Greeks, but also Scythians, Parthians, and of course later Kushans. The second map is of India, where the yellow circle shows exactly where the Gandhara is situated. It is south of the Hindu Kush Mountains. It's very important to stress here. It's a mountain range which divided Gandhara from Bactria. I mean, it's almost going right in the middle of today's Afghanistan. Some summits go up to about 7,000 meters. It's quite high. So Gandhara was in the southern slopes of the Hindu Kush Mountains, right in the middle of the Indus River, the upper Indus River with the Swat Valley. So the map is very important, Julia, as you say, to understand the region, why this art is so important and so rich because of this intercultural connections of this land. This map shows, it's a detailed map of the Gandharan sites. So far excavated, you know, most of the excavations started at the end of the 19th century and also beginning of the 20th century by British archaeologists, because this was the time that there was no country called Pakistan at that time. India was under the British Empire, and they started excavating most of these sites. There are hundreds of sites, all of them are not excavated, but at least there are some important ones like Peshawar, which was Pushkalavati, one of the capitals of the Kushans, and then Taxila, Taktibai, Sarif, Saribalol, and all that. So this map will give you an idea about the archaeological sites. These are all Buddhist sites, huge complexes with the stupas and also residence of the monks, and also places where ordinary people lived. It was an extremely rich culture.
I think one of the most unusual and exciting dimensions to our presentation of Gandharan art at Berkeley is the introduction of examples of Greek coins in the exhibition. As one of the world's foremost experts in this area, I wonder if you could guide us through a few examples that we will show and give some context about these finds in Gandharan region.
Yeah, it's a very good way to begin the description of historical introduction. Coins are very important because, just to give you an example, when we look at the Greeks who ruled in India and Bactria after the conquest of Alexander, there were 45 kings. But if you look at the text, the chronicles, only 7 are mentioned. But we know 45 because thanks to their names, because their names are written on it. And this is how the numismatics try to reconstruct the history. So the first coin is a very interesting coin where you have a commemorative coin issued by Alexander after his victory over the greatest Indian king called Porus. So on the obverse, we can see Alexander on horseback attacking the Mahout who is seated on the back of the elephant. The king Porus should be on the neck of the elephant. That's the most comfortable place to sit in. And then, of course, the Indian army was defeated by the Greek army. And at the end, of course, Alexander asks him, "How can I treat you?" So Porus said, "Treat me like a king." So Alexander left his kingdom and went away about 325, and I showed these coins. And on the reverse, you have Alexander as the conqueror and the victor. So he's there representing Zeus. He believed that he is the son of Zeus. So he's holding the thunderbolt, which is the attribute of Zeus, and he is crowned by Nike, the victory. So this is the beginning. This happens in 325 BC. So the second coin is of Menander, and these are what we call bilingual coins. The Greek rulers who were in Gandhara and also other regions like Archaeology, they issued what we call the bilingual coinage. On the obverse, you can see the portrait of the king. So it should be the king we call Menander. It reads Basileus Soterios Menandro, meaning of the king Menander, the savior. And we look at the reverse, Athena Alcidamus, the Athena as a conqueror holding the thunderbolt. And the legend is written in Kharoshthi alphabet and in Gandhari, reading from right to left, Maharajasa Tratarasa Menandrasa. We selected, Julia, this coin because Menander was a very important king for the Gandhara region. There is a text called Milinda Panya, which was written in Sanskrit, but later translated into Pali and Chinese, where it says that he had a conversation with a sage called Nagasena, and then he was convinced that the Buddhism was a good religion, and some say he was converted to Buddhism. On the other side, we have a Greek historian called Plutarch. He says that Menander died in the battle, but when he died, the sages fought with each other, trying to get his ashes to erect monuments. This episode is quite interesting because we get a similar description when Buddha, the Gautama Buddha, passed away. The cities fought in the same manner to get his ashes and erected stupas in his honor. So this means to say that this king favored Buddhism. This is not the beginning of Gandharan art, but during the time of Menander, who was known in the Pali and Sanskrit texts as Milinda, favored Buddhism, and the Buddhists were in this area in Gandhara. The next coin, Julia, it's a coin of Kanishka I, who ruled from 127 to 150 CE. And it is believed that under Kanishka, the anthropomorphic images of the Buddha were invented. It means to say, until then, the Buddha was depicted with symbols like the footprints or the Bodhi tree or the throne. But from this time onwards, he was depicted in human form, which is a big change in Indian art. So if you look at this coin, you can see Kanishka on the obverse in front of a fire altar. And on the reverse, we have one of the earliest depictions of the Buddha in human form. And we know it is Buddha because the legend says Buddho. So this is the coin of the Buddha. And under Kanishka, I don't think Kanishka ever became a Buddhist, but he favored Buddhism. And during his reign, these hundreds of monastic complexes were made in this region. And then thanks to those, we have what we call the Gandharan art.
This is really fascinating, and I think it's going to be very intriguing for our visitors to see these coins in context with the beginnings of, as you say, the Buddha depicted in human form. And this coin is particularly important in that realm. So Gandharan art was created in this amazing crossroad of culture, and this is a major theme of our exhibition. And we do hope through important examples to point out the cross-fertilization of cultures, architecture, and art. This work demonstrates some very important ways in which Gandharan art was influenced by Persian and Greek models. Could you please point to some of these elements of cross-fertilization and perhaps shed some light on how we can read various elements of different influences?
You are exactly right, Julia. So we selected this sculpture, which is one of the most beautiful sculptures that we know of from Gandhara. And if you look at the detail on our right-hand side, we can see Buddha is seated on a fully blown lotus. This is what we call a Dharma Chakra Mudra, meaning that turning the wheel. So that means he is preaching. But I think today we wanted to draw the attention of those who are listening to us and those who will be visiting the exhibition of some architectural elements coming from different horizons. We have, for example, here, the Persepolitan columns, the bell-shaped columns, and then on the top of the column, the capital, we have back-to-back bulls. This is something that we see in Persepolis, or what you call the Persian art. So it shows the Persian inspiration. And we go a little further up, then here we have the columns surmounted by the Corinthian capitals, decorated by the acanthus leaves. That's a Greek model. So the Greeks had three orders: Corinthian, Doric, and Ionian. These three orders were used in Gandharan art, and mainly the Corinthian capitals, Corinthian order. So that you can see on this, on the top part of this sculpture. And here we see very clearly the Greek inspiration. Right in the middle, we have Panchika and Hariti, a legendary figure. So, these are of course known in the Buddhist context. Hariti was cannibalistic, but thanks to Buddha, she became some sort of a mother goddess. And she's shown like a Taiki. Taiki means Tike, city goddess in Greek and Roman art. She has a headdress made of towers. And then she is holding a cornucopia, which is the corn of abundance. So she is dressed like Greek, and also Panchika, they are all dressed like Greeks. So this is the heart of the base of the plant. And then we have Atlas. We have 4 Atlas holding the building. This is an invention of the Gandharan art. Of course, we have heard about Atlas, who was punished by Zeus, and he had his whole life to hold the celestial sphere, not the earth, but the celestial sphere. But here, they don't, hold the celestial sphere, but they are holding the buildings. So this is something that you borrow, you get an inspiration, and then you convert that into something of your imagination. And on either side, we have 2 couples, usually old man with a young man. These are what we call Dionysian scenes, and we'll come to that in the next slide, where people are having festivities, I mean, of course, the couple on our right-hand side, they are drinking. So certainly they are drinking wine because Dionysius was the god of wine, ecstasy, and happiness. So all these elements are in this culture, which shows the intercultural links with other civilizations like Persia, and also, especially in this case, the Hellenistic inspiration.
We also see very intriguing images from daily life that seem to point to Greek influences, like in this scene of dancers and musicians. You've done some interesting research and written about this area of potential influence of Greek culture on Buddhist art of the region. In addition to commenting on this aspect, I wonder if you could also speak to the location that these figures would be found within a Buddhist context. Many will certainly wonder how and why such apparent frivolity would be accepted in a Buddhist monument.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Julia, your comment. So we are very happy to show this sculpture for the first time. I mean, it was a base of a statue. So you have the lion pose here, and on the top of it, there was a statue of a Buddha. So here what you have two musicians, a lady dressed like a Greek woman playing the flute, and there is a harpist. This is a typical Greek harp. And then you have two women dancing. One is turning the back to us, but she has a beautiful dancing gesture. The second woman is looking at us. So this is one of many hundreds of Bacchanalian scenes or Dionysian scenes that we find in Gandharan art. Recently, I published a stupa, until then unpublished, where you have a complete register of these scenes, where you can see people plucking grapes, pressing the grapes, and then you have the scenes with the fermentation, and then distribution of wine, and people drinking wine, and they are having sex, or they are flirting. And then at the end of the register, as if it is like a message, you have monks reading the sacred scripture. I mean, something like the birchwood text or the palm leaves. So it's a way of showing to the the people who were newly converted to Buddhism, like Greeks, Scythians, and Parthians, who were ruling in this region. There is an intermediary paradise before reaching the utmost heaven. So it's a way to explain to them everything will not end with the death. There is some sort of an intermediary phase in the life. So it is, of course, the artists who were doing this, who executed these sculptures, were certainly Greek, and they knew about the Dionysian iconography because, according to the legend, Dionysius was in India. He lived like an Indian. He introduced wine culture. He taught Indians to make wine. So there is a mixture of a lot of evidence coming from these cultures of the Greek heritage. We have to perhaps today say it here, it's not like copy and paste. The artists got the inspirations from the Greek elements, but they converted that into an Indian story. Inspirations are Greek, but the story is Buddhist. So that is the beauty of Gandharan art.
Certainly one of the major themes within the exhibition are these narrative plaques that help to define the life of the Buddha. And certainly they were instructive in some way. And as you've just commented, there was a lot of cross-fertilization between cultures and interpretation. And this little plaque is one of I think the most exquisite carvings that I've seen of this particular scene. And I wonder if you would sort of walk us through this in terms of both the ideas of cross-fertilization, but also what is being illustrated in this particular scene and why that is important.
This is one of the most beautiful sculptures depicting this scene. You're absolutely right, Julia, on that. And we are very lucky to have it. for the first time in an exhibition. Um, Before I come to the iconography of this sculpture, we have to say in few words. The Gautama Buddha, before he became the Buddha, we call him a Bodhisattva. He was born in the city called Kapilavastu. He was a prince, and he was destined to be a universal king. But at the same time, the sages said that he will become a Buddha. So his father did everything to prevent him from becoming a Buddha. So, he went to school, he learned archery, and then he, very young age, got married to a beautiful a woman that you can see here called Yashodhara. But one day, when he left the palace, he saw 4 women. The first one was the old age, and then the sick person, and the death. Then he realized the life on this earth is impermanent. So what we call anitya, life changes, and then one day we all have to die. So he said, I have to conquer the death, old age, and the sickness. So he decided to leave the palace and to become a mendicant and find a way. So the scene that we see here is the moment that he's going to leave his wife. Siddhartha, the Bodhisattva, and he has a halo here. He's seated on the bed. Just see whether the bed is not an Indian bed, it's a Greek bed that you see in Greek art. And then here, Yashodhara is sleeping. Since his father ordered the women of the palace to dance day and night to distract the prince, so they were dancing, but they also got tired on that day. So they are sleeping here. Someone is sleeping on a drum, and some are even sleeping while standing. And so this is what happened. So he also got disgusted, and he asked Channa to bring his clothes. So you can see Channa here, and also the horse called Kantaka, and we will see in the next slide. Before that, I think also, Julia, we have to say that one of the beauties of this sculpture, it has still got the gold foils on it. So most of these sculptures were, all the sculptures were either painted or they were covered with gold foils. So this is something we have to bear in mind, although we see the schist, the stone which was used in Gandhara, but they were very beautifully painted. So polychromy was there. So to understand what happened next, I think we should go to the next image.
It is through these narrative scenes that we have a glimpse into the important role that these objects played in defining the life and teachings of the Buddha. In this piece, we can see how different stories can be told in a kind of sequencing of events, which include the renunciation in the top section and the great departure below. Equally important to our exhibition is the way in which architecture plays an important indicator of this cross-fertilization that you spoke of earlier. Would you like to comment on those aspects in relationship to this panel as well?
Yes, I think, Julia, you said everything, but I try to add something to it. What is important in Gandharan art is that, the upper scene is the repetition of the scene that we saw before. That means the last night in the palace before his great departure, that we call in Sanskrit Abhidishkamana. And you can see the women who dance whole night, they are sleeping here. And we can see Channa coming from our left-hand side. The other thing, the beauty about Gandharan art is, you may wonder how we are able to see something happening inside a room. So we are not supposed to see this. But what the Gandharan artist did, it's almost like theater. You go from one scene to the other, as if they pull down the front wall and let us see what is happening inside the room. So it is almost like theater. We are in the theater. You have to open the screen and then you see what is happening inside. It's a beautiful way of depicting the storytelling, or narrating a story. So Siddhartha decided to leave the palace, and the whole palace was guarded by the soldiers that his father ordered to be there everywhere in the gates. So the gods came to help him to leave the palace. So what they did was, so Siddhartha was seated on the horse, a Kantaka, and gods carried the horse. So the people, the soldiers, of course, the gods, took the precaution to make all the soldiers sleep. So they were sleeping. An extra precaution was taken because they carried the horse, so nobody could hear that Siddhartha was leaving the palace. So here we have the gate. So he's leaving the palace and he left the palace and decided to become the Buddha, to become a mendicant.
Another central theme of the exhibition is to explore the visualization of different episodes of the life of the historical Buddha. We are able to present a number of important events in the life of the Buddha through these beautifully carved examples. Were these sculptures intended to educate the general public or the monastic community about the life of the Buddha? Why were they so important to the growth and understanding of Buddhism in Gandhara?
Yes, the important thing about Gandharan art, more than any other Buddhist schools in India, is the same thing that I told a while ago. Every scene is stage. It's an act. So the Corinthian capitals or the columns separate one scene from the other. And if they were in a stupa, this is what we call the pradakshina, that you circumambulate around the stupa clockwise. The story continues from our right to left. So it has a chronological order, sequential order. So it follows a famous sacred text called Lalita Vistara. So everything is in that order. On this one, so if you want to educate people who will be there, so first we have the Maras attack. So Siddhartha left the palace and he was in the jungle, in the forest for 6 years. He was first, discussing with all the Brahminical ascetics who were there to find a way to conquer the death, the sickness, and the old age. He was not satisfied, so he was punishing his body, what we call the mortification, for 6 years. And after that, he decided to give up everything and then find a way. So he sat under the Bodhi tree with the determination, I won't get up from this seat before I find a solution. So this is what you see, he's seated. And then Mara could be interpreted as a physical enemy of the Buddha or himself. He's fighting against himself, against the desire. So if you read the text, it's almost like a physical attack. So in Gandharan art, most of these soldiers are dressed like Greek soldiers or Syrian soldiers. They physically try to attack the Buddha, and Buddha stayed there. He was not disturbed by them. So at the end, he became the Buddha because he said to Mara, the chief of the demoniac army, in my past lives, I have done so much good things and I have so much merit, and the earth will witness of my past lives. So he takes his hand and touches the earth. So this is what we call the Bhumi Sparsha Mudra, touching the earth. So the earth goddess came up and said, yes, you are deemed to be the Buddha. So at this point, he became the Buddha. And then for 49 days, he was so happy, finding the way to fight against the death, old age, and the sickness. For 49 days, he was in the vicinity of the Bodhi tree. After 7 weeks spent around the Bodhi tree, he was feeling hungry. So two merchants called Tapasu and Balluka, here we have two of them. So they were guided by one of their former relative who has now become a god, told them, please go and see the Buddha and give him something to eat. So they were going in their cars, chariots with goods. So they went and offered the first meal after 49 days to Buddha. That was a rice cake. And here Buddha was very happy to eat the food. And of course, the the four guardian gods of the realm offered him a bowl to eat. So that's the second. And third is that Buddha decided, what I found was extremely difficult for people to understand. So I may not preach. So the Brahma and Indra and other gods came and said, no, please do preach to the ordinary people. So he accepted. Here we have the first sermon. He went to Sarnath in the deer park, and this is what we call turning of the wheel. Here is the wheel. He started turning the wheel. That means he started preaching. So normally there should be 5. Sometimes we have only 5. These were the first disciples. The mendicants who was with him when he was fasting became his first disciples. After that, of course, the story continues. Hundreds of people got converted and they became Buddhist monks. This is how the Buddhism started with the first sermon in Sarnath. There were other episodes in the life of the Buddha until his death, what we call the Parinirvana. We may look at least one, Julia, one of the events.
Yeah, upon realization, the Buddha performed a number of miracles, including the one illustrated here, known as the Miracle of Savasti. I imagine very few sculptors would attempt to describe this otherworldly event in stone. I think this may be among the rarest sculptures in the show, and I'm sure our listeners would love to hear the story associated with the image.
Yeah, as you said, Julia, correctly, we are very, very fortunate to have this beautiful sculpture, which is one of the most beautiful ones depicting the dual miracle. It should have come from Afghanistan, which is called the Greater Gandhara, not in the heart of the Gandhara itself, because it has this style. The Buddha is depicted shorter than the other ones. We will see later the Gandharan Buddha, and also a little more chubbier than the other ones. So what happened was that when he went to Savasti, the Brahmins, the people of the higher caste, didn't believe that he was the Buddha and refused to venerate him or accept him as the enlightened one. So at that moment, Buddha performed a dual miracle. We call it dual because from his feet came water and from his shoulders came flames. Not only that, while doing that, while the water was coming from the feet and the flames were coming out of the shoulders, he went up to the ciel, up to the sky, and started walking in the cloister. What we call the cloister pathway, and he started walking. And then the people who refused to accept that he is the Buddha venerated him and said, "You have now become the Buddha." So this is what we see on this sculpture. There are only 5 sculptures known of this style, and which came from Afghanistan, not very far from Begram, Alexandria of Caucasus. There are many other details to explain in this, but because of the time, we should shorten it. But once again, it's a very beautiful depiction of the dual miracle of the Buddha.
The life of the historical Buddha is well represented in this exhibition, including this marvelously serene seated Buddha. In this and the next image, we see the haloed image of the Buddha, first seated in meditation, like here, and then standing frontally. The halo and the stem above it is an intriguing element. Is this a regional element, or is it another example of cross-fertilization? And what would have been the purpose of this vertical extension?
Yeah, the vertical extension is to fix a chhatra. Chhatra is an umbrella or parasol. Parasol is always only the dignitaries, the kings and the holy monks had the right to have a parasol or a chhatra over the head. So this statue and the next one we will see, in some rare cases, either you fixed it on the roll, and here it is very clear that it had a chhatra fixed onto it. So as you said, then we have the halo or the numbers behind the Buddha, and also some elements that we realize that he is the Buddha because he has on the head what we call Ushnisha, some sort of protuberance on the head, and also Urna here on the forehead. It's a lock of hair. So Buddha had 32 exceptional qualities or lakshana or symbols in his body. So these are the two prominent ones. And this is the typical Gandharan style compared to the other one that we saw a while ago. This is from the heart of Gandhara, and it is the style of Peshawar, Pushkalavati. Very beautiful. I mean, this is what made Alfred Fouché say, by this time we are talking about the 2nd century, first depictions of the Buddha in a human figure. By that time, nobody knew how Buddha looked like. So Fouché said, the artist selected the most beautiful Greek god, Apollo, to depict the Buddha. So you can see some of the way that his face is depicted is almost like a Greek god. And I believe personally, and this is the beginning of the anthropomorphic images of the Buddha. And we are very fortunate to have this beautiful statue at in our exhibition.
This is the other haloed image that is actually quite different in presentation. Could you comment on that?
Yes, it's quite interesting. I mean, he's not in Dhyani Mudra, that means in meditation like the seated one. Unfortunately, the right hand is broken, but I am quite sure he was making the Abhay Mudra, which means the gesture of reassurance, asking people not to be afraid. And also with the left hand, he's holding the hem of the overrobe. And then he has a very beautiful halo, or the numbers, decorated by stylized Bodhi leaves. Bodhi is the Ficus religiosa, the tree under which the Buddha was enlightened. And then these are the stylized version of those leaves. And as you said correctly, Julia, and then we have this extension again, which was used as an extension to fit, a chatra or a parasol on it. So showing that he is a sacred figure.
Most of our examples of Buddhist art from this period are in stone, usually that hard schist, which allows for a very crisp carved surface. Here we have something quite different, a very elaborate bronze from a neighboring region. We can clearly see that it is the teaching Buddha, but otherwise it seems quite different and really striking in the elaborate aureole and the distinct posture, as well as the throne. Could you comment on this remarkable piece?
Yes, I think, Julia, you selected this sculpture to show the extension of Gandharan art. First of all, I have to congratulate on you to have this sculpture. When I saw the photograph, I said, we are very lucky to have this. It's a beautiful sculpture and very rare, that we can date it to 6th, 7th, 8th centuries from Kashmir, which is the extension of Gandhara. And Buddha is seated, what the art historian called the European way. That means comfortably seated on a chair-like thing in the throne. And you can see the throne is fixed, and also his feet on a fully open lotus. And then you have 2 lions on either side. And then he's doing what we call the Dharmachakra Mudra, which means to say that he is teaching. Compared to other statues that we saw so far, by this period, I'm talking about the 7th century, Buddha is almost shown like a prince. That's why his robe is decorated with beautiful jewelry, as well as the halo and also the mandorilla, behind that, very beautifully decorated with flower motifs and also these pointed motifs around it, giving some sort of a god-like aspect to Buddha. So it shows the evolution of simple statues or depictions of the Buddha wearing the 2 robes, without any decorations, without any jewelry. But here, by this time, and we will, of course, when we look at the other forms of Buddhist art, he is given a status almost like a god. So this is wonderful, very beautiful image of that period.
And again, we see the Buddha preaching in this stone carving, but there seems to be so much more going on with this remarkable work. Perhaps to wrap up, you could walk us through some of the highlights of this piece.
Yes, I mean, once again, we are very lucky to have this sculpture. So much has to be said about it. Julia, shall we start from the upper portion of the sculpture to begin with? Yes, thank you so much. Here we have Buddha as a bodhisattva. That means before he became the Buddha, he is dressed like a prince. So we have to imagine those days, I mean, during the Kushan period, the Kushan kings and the princes, they were wearing such clothes, you can see, and also beautiful jewelry, necklace, and also the earrings, sometimes the bracelets. So he's like really like a prince, and also the headdress with a precious stone on it here. And and here you have a person with a leather bag, made of textile, maybe throwing flowers to him. And here you have a woman holding a lotus flower. So this is how it begins. First, we see a Buddha as a bodhisattva or Buddha to be. So if you move on to the next one, where, as you said correctly, Julia, we have Buddha seated on a fully open, fully blown lotus flower, making this mudra or the gesture of teaching. And this is what I said before. He had these sophisticated clothes. Buddha is normally depicted like this in Gandharan art, simple overall, and no jewelry at all. What is interesting here is also, look at these. Here you have again the Persepolitan columns like in Persepolis, with bell-shaped capitals. And then on the top of it, you have back-to-back bulls. And this is something you see in the art of Persepolis. And also these indented decorations coming from the Greek world or Hellenistic inspiration. And then you have on either side two gods. On our left-hand side, Brahma. On our right-hand side, Indra. Brahma is the creator in Hindu iconography. Indra is the lord of the gods, the god of thunder and lightning. Why they are in veneration? This is what you call Anjali Mudra. That means venerating the Buddha. This is an attempt to show Buddha was born in a Hindu country where the beliefs were Hindu, to show that he is above the gods. So this is what we call Rajati Raja, the god above the gods. So this is a reason why the Gandharan artists are showing the two most important gods venerating the Buddha, saying that it is Buddha who is venerated, not the Buddha who is venerating the gods. So he is above all of them. And then we can move on to the next one. Here, this is the base of the statue, where you have, I mean, originally there should have been two elephants. One is playing with the elephant. This side is broken, unfortunately for us. And on either side, you have two women, maybe with the gesture of throwing flowers to the Buddhas. Here, if we start from this side, we have, he is not dressed like the other Buddhas. He is dressed like a prince. So his name is Maitreya, the Buddha to be. After Gautama Buddha, he will be the next Buddha. So he is there in the order, making Abhay Mudra, that means the gesture of reassurance. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Buddhas. I mean, including the Gautama Buddha, who is the last one, the Gautama Buddha that you see on the sculpture that we saw there. And other Buddhas, these are the Buddhas of the past, like Vipassi, Sikhi, Visabu, Kakuchanda, Kanakamuni, Kashyapa, and then we have Gautama or Shakyamuni. So it shows the continuity, meaning there were Buddhas before Gautama Buddha, and there will be a Buddha after the Gautama Buddha, who will be Maitreya, who will come to this earth and will become a Buddha to teach the Dharma or the law or the discipline to the human beings. So in that context, there is a wonderful apart from the other elements I showed you, Persepolitan columns and the Greek elements and everything. Here, this sculpture shows first Gautama Buddha as a Bodhisattva, the Buddha to be, and then Gautama Bodhisattva becoming the Buddha and teaching the world with this teaching gesture, and then the continuity. Everything does not end with Gautama Buddha. There will be a future Buddha who is called Maitreya, and he will be in the lineage of the Buddhas of the past. So that's why we have these Buddhas here. I mean, the last one is the Gautama Buddha, and then Kashyapa and others on this sculpture. So I think it's a good way to finish our tour with this beautiful sculpture, which explains what you said, Julia, in this conversation, and what I have tried to add to it. And so, as you can see, this is a wonderful exhibition.
Thank you, Osmund. That was really wonderful to hear you speak about these amazing sculptures and works of art that we're going to be able to share with our community very soon. The show will be extended until October 3rd, so there'll be many opportunities for people to come in to see the exhibition. And I can't thank you enough, Osmund. It's just been such a wonderful pleasure to work with you. And I admire your knowledge. Your scholarship is just so great and has such great depth to it. We're very, very fortunate to have had this opportunity to work with you. And I look forward to seeing you. I hope you can come to visit the show sometime this summer and also enjoy being in the gallery with these objects. Thank you so much, Osmund.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you very much for doing this and wonderful exhibit. I saw the photographs that they're coming out so well. Thank you. And it was my pleasure to share this experience with you.
Thank you, Osmund. Good evening.
Good evening.